Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I'm your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you guys here on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. Welcome. So you can find me there on Thursdays for the Sappy and JB show and Sundays for the JB show. If you guys have not already, go ahead and do the damn thing and give me a like so that we can be able to reach more people and be able to encourage, inspire, as well as activate. So thank you very much for that there. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. This guys gives you email notifications whenever I write any articles, upload any clips, or go live just like this. You guys have that there, just like the people who got notification I was going live a half an hour ago. You guys have that on the ready. If you guys have not already, you guys can also subscribe to my Q Bounty. This gives you the ability to be able to ask me questions and I give a video response answer or react to any videos that you guys may find interesting. And I video react to whatever you guys send. So you guys can go to qbounty.com/Jaybefaunt there. All right, guys, good to see every single one of you joining in for the stream. It is October 28th, 2025, and we are live. Welcome to all of you. Let's go ahead and give a hello to everybody in the chat and say our hellos, because that's the type of people we are here. We would like to say hello to everybody. Hello. Is it me you're looking for? All right, I'm not going to harm people with my singing, making their ears bleed. You guys want me to continue my singing? I understand. I will stop singing so that you guys won't have to hear it anymore. All right, moving on. Let's go into the chat just to say our hellos to everybody in here. So, who do we have coming up first? Who's on first? We have Edward coming in saying, "What's up, JB? Good to see you, Edward." All right, nice to have you here. All right, we have Zero coming in. So we meet again, Mr. Fauntleroy. Oh, I love how that sounds. That sounds so 007 villain-esque. We met again, Mr. Fauntleroy. Today, I posed a question. Are you both James Fauntleroy, the musician, and James Fauntleroy, the Revolutionary Blackout, or is that someone else? James Fauntleroy, the musician, aka the producer, is not me. On social media for years. So no, there's two different James Fauntleroys. We're both Black people and we're both fluffy, and no, we're not the same. That's all I'll say. We're not the same. That's why that's James Fauntleroy and I'm James B. Fauntleroy. Just like there's a Michael Jordan and there's a Michael B. Jordan. So there you go. All right. Thank you so very much for that. We have Jacqueline coming in saying, hello. Hey, JB. Hey, everyone. Hey. Wait, I can't talk today. What the heck is going on? The mouth is not mouthing today. Hey, JB. Hey, everyone. Okay, so we're getting into that. I honestly do not know exactly what's going on. And the crazy part is like it started choppy when I was doing a recording with Margaret Kimberly on, a few days ago. And then the choppiness kind of went away after a little while and it was smooth sailing. But for some reason, it just starts off choppy. And I don't know if it's a bandwidth issue that's going on, because times like this, got a lot of people who are online at the same time. But I don't feel any choppiness. I don't see any choppiness whenever I'm online on any other platform. Also, I was also online for the mutual aid workshop with Savvy Sabs. So there was nobody complaining about me being choppy, though I wasn't on video, but you could, hear my voice, and people weren't saying that I was choppy at all when I was doing the, when I was speaking during that workshop. So I'm thinking that this is going to be a StreamYard thing. I have been giving feedback. I am going to, in fact, let me do this right here, right now. And all right, so I'm just gonna let them know, because this keeps happening, and this is literally like the third or fourth time. And so I'm not exactly sure. So I think this is really more of a technical issue, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I am live. But I'm going to have to, yeah, I'm going to have to, yeah, I'm going to have to do this later, but I'll do this once my stream ends, and so that, they can possibly take a look at it and be like, oh, well, this is the issue that we can probably solve. Maybe it's a bug in the system, I'm thinking. But thank you very much for that, Roger. Appreciate it. CBC voter coming in saying, what is that? T at JB and Peace. Thank you so very much. Good to see a CBC voter up in here. Sean coming in. All right. Says, good morning, JB. Still watching on both YouTube and Kick. Double whammy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And if you guys have not, you guys can also watch my channel on Kick as well as Rumble. I am trying to increase those numbers, the subscriber counts, because the way these platforms are moving these days, we need to be on multiple different platforms to be able to reach people. And on top of that, the censorship is real, and it's intensifying, especially as the years progress. We are almost to 2026, and I foresee that we're going to have an intense amount of pressure for censorship, especially when we speak about what's going on with different genocides going on right now. We have one that's going on in Palestine, occupied Palestine, but also the genocides that are right now intensifying in places like Sudan. And so we're going to need to have that diversifying. I almost said diversification. I'm making up words today, but the diversification, that's right, I made up a word, of our platform so that we are not just stuck in one area. So thank you very much for that. And so Roger says, JB, I'm going to take a chance this year and order a Cajun turkey through Popeyes. Oh, send me a piece. Send me a piece. And then I asked JB, what did you see Michael Rappaport put his hands on Russell WR? I did. Michael Rappaport, if you don't want somebody to put their hands on you, don't you put hands on somebody else. Michael Rappaport, he is fortunate that wasn't somebody else. And somebody else would have returned that same energy. And Michael Rappaport would have looked like spilled cottage cheese on the concrete. I'm just saying. And so you got to be careful with how you are with people. Because the thing is, like, some people, if you escalate, they will continue to escalate. And Michael Rappaport escalated the entire situation because a hit dog will holler. He got in his feelings. He was pressed. He was perturbed. He was bothered. And so therefore, he decided to put his hands on Russell. And by the way, that was actually a really good question by Russell WR. Is, are you intensifying anti-Semitism by your words and actions? I'm just saying, you know what I mean? He's making the case for Israel worse. That's what Michael Rappaport is doing. Got to be more careful. All right. Okay. There's some questions about BET. I will get to those. I will get to those during the BET segment. So I did see them, guys, but I will get to those during the BET segment because those are really good questions you guys are asking. All right. All right. Let's get into the show today. Thank you very much for bearing with me as I'm getting through these technical issues. But let's talk about what we're going to be in here for today. All right. So let's take a look at the thumbnail. We got 3 stories as usual. Later in the show today, we're going to be paying a little bit more keen attention to Gen X. You hear that right? Gen X. Why are we going to be paying more keen attention to them? Well, because these 2 gentlemen actually mentioned Gen X in their analysis. And I would like to do a reaction to some of this video because I think it is important that there is some things I think that they are kind of missing on. So I am here to kind of fill in the gaps. So we're going to be doing that. We're also going to be talking about BET. Who is that? Well, that is Bob Johnson. He was the person who started BET. And then and this has been out for a few years, but I think it's important to hear the words straight from him. So we're going to be getting into that. And I definitely got my thoughts on that. But we have a pressing story that we got to get into immediately because this is about the people. We're going to be talking about a Category 5 storm in Jamaica that is hitting it right now. So we got to get into the story. This one involves the people. Jamaica's worst storm in history. We got to talk about it right now. Folks, right now, Jamaica is getting rocked by a Category 5 hurricane, the biggest and strongest storm that has ever been recorded in Jamaican history. And right now, people are suffering, and it is going to be extremely devastating. As of from what I was looking at this morning, the hurricane from the south under Jamaica near Kingston and is the capital of Jamaica. So that Category 5, on top of that, the eye wall, the top of the eye wall, the northern side of the eye wall is where winds are strongest. They're experiencing 175 mile per hour winds right now. So one of the things that I'm going to do in this is we're going to talk about, what's going on. And we're also going to get into ways in which you may be able to help for people who are living in Jamaica, because this is something that is going to be desperately needed. And we'll try to get into ways that we can assist our, fellow people, workers, proletariat, world citizens in the island nation that is south of us. So we're going to be getting into that. I want to share something that I saw yesterday, because this gentleman actually was speaking about what was to come at the time. And this is actually for a lot of your meteorological needs, because this one is a big one. So let me share. I think, yeah. He posted a video here. Let me see. Okay, I just want to make sure that I have it correct when it's ready. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So this is the channel maximum. So I would suggest you guys actually watch this, because this guy is on the nose with a lot of different things involving weather. So let's just go through this.
Is taking a turn for the worst as it approaches Jamaica, and we are anticipating that this is going to cause catastrophic impacts as a Category 5 hurricane over the next 24 to 48 hours. So in today's forecast, we're going to break down exactly what you need to know about Hurricane Melissa and why this hurricane is doing something we have never seen before. We're going to begin with what's happening with Hurricane Melissa right now, and this thing has gone crazy over the last 24 hours. This was only a tropical storm yesterday morning, and this morning it is borderline Category 5 as it approaches Jamaica. You can see how the eye is cleared out. This is just unbelievable how fast this thing has rapidly intensified over the last 24 hours. And unfortunately, the northern side of Melissa is now reaching southern Jamaica. So some of that heavy rainfall is starting to move in. And over the next 24 hours, we're going to continue to see this northwesterly flow with heavy rain bands moving into eastern Jamaica. And parts of eastern Jamaica could pick up between 30 to 50 inches of rainfall over the next few days. This is going to be one of the worst, if not the worst hurricane to ever hit Jamaica over the last 100 years. Now, Hurricane Melissa.
So one thing that I think I want people to know about the topography of Jamaica is that on the eastern side, on the western, going into the western side of Jamaica, to the west of Kingston, there is a mountainous region over that area. And so what ends up happening is that all because of all that water that's going in, that downpour, as well as the storm surge, a lot of that water that may hit that side of the mountain, where does it go? It slopes back down into the surrounding areas. And so that's a big problem, because now we're going to be looking at flash floodings, mudslides, landslides, these different types of things that are happening. And this is extremely bad for Jamaica. Now, if anybody knows geography, what is north of Jamaica? Cuba. And if it's going to hit Jamaica and it's heading north, that means it's going to hit Cuba as well. Now, it may downgrade because of its over land. See, the thing about hurricanes is that the amount of water and water vapor that gets strength is cut off. And so then it actually weakens as it's over land. But the problem is Jamaica's not that big. So once it gets over Jamaica, then it gets back over that water and it starts sucking up some of that source of strength over that water. And this is why people talk about, when it comes to climate change, a lot of people want to mention it and some people want to go, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear it. Here's the problem. As the earth gets warmer, then that means the waters get warmer. What happens when waters get warmer? Let's go back to science class, y'all. What ends up happening? Okay, then the molecules start to move very fast, and then it turns from, what are the stages of matter? It becomes from a liquid to a gas. Therefore, now you have water vapor that's going up, which also strengthens that hurricane. Because remember what clouds clouds are just big masses of water vapor that are in the air. And so once the water droplets get pointed together, then it gets heavy enough that it falls down as rain. So you have that along with the winds, and you have this gigantic vortex. And now we're having a vortex that's reaching upwards of 175 miles per hour, which is extremely powerful, which can take down buildings, homes, and different types of infrastructure as well. And so this is why this is so dangerous, because a lot of people are going to be in the way, which means a lot of homes are going to be devastated and a lot of infrastructure is going to be devastated. And then some people are going to die. And that's how serious this is. Hurricane season does not officially end until Sunday. Is Sunday? No, Saturday. Saturday? Yeah. November 1st is when hurricane season officially ends. Now, may have to move back to, the end of hurricane season as the earth continues to warm, because now you're going to have longer hurricane seasons, but this is how it works. And so it doesn't mean that because of climate change that we have, that we didn't have hurricanes and now we do. Now we've always had hurricanes, but the problem is that they're growing in intensity and in frequency. So therefore, now we have hurricanes that typically we would get a category 1, category 2, and it'd be over. Now we're experiencing 3s and 4s. And then as we progress and get even warmer, now we're going to be getting category 4s and 5s. And now you're seeing what is it? It's October 28th. And we got a category 5 hurricane. We are a couple days away from Halloween. And we're about to have we got a category 5 hurricane to the south of us. So this is why it's so important. So let's continue in just a little bit further. And he'll be getting some more facts done today. And you have some reporters that are on the ground that are speaking about.
Worst, it is going to make direct landfall in Jamaica as we go into late Monday and early Tuesday as a powerful category 4 or 5 hurricane. I would honestly anticipate that this is going to be borderline Cat 5 upon landfall in Jamaica, which would make it the worst hurricane in terms of intensity to ever make landfall in Jamaica. On top of that, in my opinion, this will probably be the worst hurricane we've ever seen in Jamaica. Right now, we do have hurricane warnings for Haiti, and then we also have hurricane watches in effect for both Haiti and as well as eastern Cuba. But this is the real story. This hurricane is barely going to move over the next couple of days. In fact, it is basically going to be stationary. As of right now, this hurricane is moving west at about 1 to 2 miles per hour. That is extremely slow. It's basically stationary. And as we go into tomorrow night, that is when it's going to start to finally turn off to the north, which means it's going to make direct landfall in Jamaica sometime late Monday into early Tuesday. And it's really not going to speed up until we go into late Tuesday. So we're going to have several days of catastrophic rainfall falling in Jamaica, which is going to lead to tons of landslides, and it is going to lead to most likely a very fatal hurricane. And I hate this.
So here's the thing. I don't know. I forget the name of the hurricane, but it was a few years back where we had a hurricane that was, I think it was maybe a Cat 2. I think it was a category 2. But because it stayed stationary over Florida and the winds kept pounding, it was a Cat 2. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, as somebody that's lived in Florida for as long as I have, okay? When I hear a category 1 or a category 2, look, that's hurricane party, baby. That's stay home, get a bunch of groceries, prepared to have the power to go out. You got everything all set up and ready to go, but then you have some friends and family that maybe are should be, and y'all just chill, y'all talk, y'all play games, all the stuff, right? Category 1, Category 2, relax, right? You're just going to have the power out for maybe a day or two, right? When you hit a Category 3 and up, that's when I start paying attention. Once you hear Cat 3, your ears perk up. You're like, huh? Huh? Okay. This was a Cat 2, and it stayed stationary over Florida. Measurement kept the water saturation in the ground made it so that it's soft. So trees were falling down everywhere. The damage was massive because it was so slow moving. Now take a Cat 2 and compare it to a Cat 5 that is stationary over a little island nation like Jamaica. You do the math. It's bad. It is bad. And so I want you guys to get the gravity of this situation. Now, I'm going to share the channel for this person because they always have like breaking news when it comes to different weather stories. There's called Maximum Velocity. And so you guys go ahead and subscribe to this channel. They're doing great work, especially just letting people know like what the facts are about the weather. And that's it. So you guys got that. But yes, this is going to be bad. And I'm going to share with you guys what, because earlier this morning, there has been conditions talking about worsening in Jamaica as we speak. And so we'll be getting into this and then we'll continue. We'll finish up as well. All right, so let me share this. All right, so this is right. This was about 5 hours ago, maybe 6 hours ago. So let's get into it.
Bracing for a direct hit from Hurricane Melissa, this monster Category 5 storm that is already the most powerful storm on Earth this year. Conditions are getting worse with the outer bands hitting even as we speak. The new updated track shows Melissa about 115 miles west-southwest of the capital, Kingston, with maximum sustained winds of an astonishing 175 miles per hour. Now, along with the catastrophic winds, there are expected flash flooding, life-threatening storm surge of up to 13 feet, and landslides. Mandatory evacuations have been ordered along parts of the coast. U.S. Air Force hurricane hunters have been inside the eye of the storm. The National Hurricane Center warns the eye wall could bring total structure.
Hang on. Let's take a look here.
Hunters have been in.
There's on the upper left-hand corner, that's the sky. Here you have a wall, the wall of the eye inside of the hurricane. Just look at that. It's terrifying yet beautiful at the same time. But this is what we're dealing with. And so I just want people to realize how powerful this thing really is.
Inside the eye of the storm, the National Hurricane Center warns the eye wall could bring total structural failure to Jamaica, especially at higher elevations. The storm is already blamed for at least 7 deaths in the Caribbean, including 3 in Jamaica. CNN's Derek Van Dam live in Kingston this morning with the latest. Derek, what are you seeing so far?
Yeah, John, we are nearing the inevitable landfall of the strongest hurricane to ever strike this island nation. No one on Jamaica will be spared from the fury of Hurricane Melissa as it comes on shore in the coming hours, this slow, agonizing pace of about 3 to 5 miles per hour that is just going to prolong the misery across this country. We are in Kingston. National Weather Service, very strong wording about complete structural failure, communication, power outages for days, and isolation of communities possible. Here in Kingston, you can see the winds picking up in the background. The rain has really come in earnest throughout the course of the night. Trying to get a couple of hours of sleep to prepare for our day today. My windows were rattling last night as the Norman Manley International Airport, which is within sight of the balcony of our hotel, reported a gust of 58 miles per hour. That was the storm is well offshore of where I'm located, 115 miles to be precise. But the core of those inner eyewall winds, the strongest part of this Cat 5 hurricane, is about 30 miles in diameter, and where it will make landfall is so critical. We say this a lot. It's a game of miles now as we take that final approach into the south coast of Jamaica. We're thinking maybe the St. Elizabeth Parish, Treasure Beach, the Mandeville region. If you look on a map of Jamaica, you'll see it. What makes the terrain here so susceptible is a lot of people, a lot of communities live in these low-lying areas that are prone to flash flooding, mudslides, and landslides. So Kingston itself sits in a bowl surrounded by mountains that tower over 7,000 feet. And when the water falls in those mountains and here on the ground, it's going to be met with an opposing force of the storm surge from Hurricane Melissa. And those opposing forces are going to work against each other and make that water rise up right along those coastlines where unfortunately there still are people located. You can see, I want to pan up here quickly just with my cameraman. We do already have a couple of side structural damages on the side of our building here, and we're really just getting going. So we're going to monitor that, keep in a safe place. We do have the ability to get indoors very quickly, but conditions will be going downhill, and we are thinking and praying for the people of Jamaica. It is going to be an unthinkable day here on this island nation, John.
So this is bad. You're it's bad. So my best recommendation is to do what you can, and I don't know if you're religious, then pray. If you're not religious, then keep Jamaica in your thoughts. That's all I got to say. They are going through it. And another thing that a lot of people need to regard is a lot of people who think, oh man, climate change isn't real. It'll get all them climate refugees coming here because their home was devastated, because they can no longer live in the island nation that they were living. Well, guess what? All because we're not doing what we can to curb climate change. Now, add on top of that, any country that also is facing sanctions by the United States on top of all that. This is why it is so important for us to have solidarity with other people in other places so that they can actually have safe places where they're from and be able to continue to stay in a home in which they have built a life. They don't want to pick up and go, but they have to. That's not fair. Continue to exploit and contribute to climate change and do all these sanctions all over the world. And then guess what? They have no choice. And so they have to move here. And then they got to leave their life. They got to leave their homes. They got to leave places where they've been at for generations that they would love to stay. And so I think it's important that when we start to regard and talk about what people are going through, we also have to think about the solutions, not just what we do here, but how it affects other groups around the world too. It's not just for our benefit. This is also for the benefit of our fellow citizens of the world that have been affected by the conditions that the parasite class has been exacerbating for the last 100 to 150 years when it comes to things like imperialism. So this is why it's so important. So if you guys know of any mutual aid organizations that is either in contact with Jamaica or that is in Jamaica that you could that you could either help or send supplies to, then try to help. Try to look for those as much as you possibly can. I know a lot of us here in the United States, we're not doing well, but even if we all just bandage together just to give a little bit, many hands make the load, right? So of course, just like what a lot of people did, with going on in Haiti, we do, what we can. Now, here's my thing. I think if the United States as the government was to do anything, it would do something small. It wouldn't do anything significant. And the problem is you got countries, a ridiculous president like Millet that is basically tanking his economy. And yet you have Jamaica that is going through a storm, which is something out of their control, completely out of their control. And will the United States actually help Jamaica in a significant way? Will $40 billion go to Jamaica? I highly doubt it. And so I think that mutual aid is going to be part of what helps. We try to take care of what we can for ourselves here, but at the same time, it's tough because how much more better Jamaica will be doing if the systems that we have in place weren't influencing, especially those of us here in the Western Hemisphere. You know what I mean? So let me see. So let me see what we have here as far as mutual aid in Jamaica. I'm trying to make sure I get my hands on mutual aid, and a lot of places that are mutual aid are centered here in the United States. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to find. This is why I say connect with your mutual aid organizations that are local to you, that they may know of mutual aid organizations in Jamaica that are taking any type of donations, whether it be clothing, food, it could be generators, it could be any type of mutual aid that you can think of to assist the people. So just continue to keep Jamaica in your thoughts and have solidarity with the people across the world, because they're suffering just like we are. All right, so go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you very much. We're going to go into the chats and we will get to that, and then we will get into our next story after a couple of house cleaning things. So we're going to check on the Rumble. Make sure. Okay. We're going to check on the Rumble side to see if we have any Rumble rants. And then if not, then we will check on Kick to see if we have any gifted subs. Okay, well, looks like we're good on Rumble right now. Where's my Kick at? Oh, I think I took it down. Okay. All right. Okay, no gifted subs yet, but we do have a comment, so we'll get into that. All right, so let me see. Let me see. This is, let me see, from Jacqueline says, is this hurricane likely to hit U.S.? And if it does, where is likely to hit, or will it depend on wind direction? So according to meteorologists, it actually will not hit the United States. In fact, it should go north along the United States coast, but it will stay far off and should hit really Bermuda, and then it'll continue on north. Where it hits anywhere near the UK. So that is the only issue, unless somehow there's some weird southern direction of wind from the south in the southwest. I'm sorry, from the southeast coming and blowing that hurricane southwest. Unless something like that drastically happens, then no. But they're projecting that it will somehow go over Bermuda. So thankfully, we won't see it hit the United States, but I am thankful that is not hitting us. Category, no. Doctor, whoa! Says, hey JB, good to see you. All right. You see, see Jacqueline asked, what cat was the infamous Hurricane Katrina? I think it was a 4 at max. I think right before it hit landfall. I think it was a 4. But yeah, Hurricane Katrina was bad. And part of what made it bad is that because New Orleans is basically below sea level, it's shaped like a bowl. And so all that water poured in. That's what made it really, really bad. And New Orleans is a very interesting place, is that they're so below sea level that their graves are above ground. Yeah, that's how bad it is. Yeah. Okay. Sean says it was a 5, and then when it hit land, it was a 3. Yeah. Holly says Vietnam and Cuba handle hurricanes much better than the U.S. they can learn a thing or two. Definitely. I'm just concerned for Cuba too, because they're facing sanctions by the United States, and any natural disasters and devastation, it is it just exacerbates the problems that the United States does to it, I should say. All right, we got Cowboy Kitty coming in. Good to see you, Cowboy Kitty. Let me see. Yeah, Sela says yes. The slow move, full force eye hitting the center of the island is very destructive. Yeah, it is pretty bad. Actually, in Jamaica, I mean, he didn't even say bumbleclot. Oh my goodness. You guys are. I'm trying to be serious, and you guys won't let me. Sean Rockers coming in. It's absolutely crazy to have to deal with the effects of a hurricane. Homes at risk of being lost that people may have to move elsewhere. And no telling if representative of the people will ever help. Yeah. And Jamaica's not a rich country at all. That's what makes it so bad. Let me see. Way. Absolutely. All right, let's get into the next one. Before we do that, we're going to talk about a couple of things. So, one thing I want to do is I want to bring attention to two things. So there's going to be a particular show that's going to be happening tomorrow. So I want to make sure that we have this set up so that people know exactly what's going on. Make sure I have this. Let me make sure I have this. Wait. Okay, I just want to make sure I have that correct. So I talked about this particular story recently, but there's going to be a benefit show for a young person named Aspen, and we talked about what they're doing. And Aspen was basically an activist that is autistic, that was on their way to a concert, and on their way to a concert, the person that they were riding with, who they didn't really know that well, and the details are going to be as well in their GoFundMe, but the person that was transporting them actually had drugs in the car, and Aspen had no idea. And so Aspen was tagged as well for drug possession and facing prison time for being there, even though Aspen had absolutely no idea. And so, unfortunately, what we see now is Aspen is basically facing legal trouble for something that they had no idea about. So let me share this. I will also be streaming the show as well. So you have people from the Indie News Network that are also going to be there. You have a few people like Jesse Jed, Misty Woodson, Aspen Martin, Halo Benson, and Descent in Bloom. So we're going to be having this as well. So this is going to be a big show of solidarity for Aspen. Should not be placed in prison for this. I'm going to share just a little bit of the video, and I will put the link as well in the chat for you guys too. So let's go.
Who are these people?
It's federal drug trafficking across state lines that carries a mandatory minimum of 33 years. Aspen has no record. She's never even gotten a speeding ticket before. The $7,500, the one that did help secure her bail, and then we'll be able to have discovery.
Who are these people? Hi, everyone. This is Indy. Let me welcome our guests, Halo Benson and Aspen Martin.
This is Aspen, my daughter. So Aspen rode with David in his RV from Tennessee down to Suwannee Music. Florida. We stopped in because he got heat sickness real bad because the RV that we were traveling in didn't have AC unless it was plugged in. So we ended up getting a lot at an RV park in Georgia for the night and spent the night and slept up there. Aspen didn't really want to go, but they were like, please, we really need the money. If you could go sell her stuff as well as your stuff, we'd really appreciate it. They were pulled over. And almost immediately they made us come out, and then they just started tearing it apart. And Aspen or any other drugs other than marijuana, they found a ton of Adderall, ketamine, Xanax, all sorts of other drugs. She don't have nothing to do with it.
Yeah. She's literally just an unknowing participant in the entire thing.
The police made my daughter pull down her pants and pee on the side of the highway. This is in Peach County, Georgia, on the side of US 75. They arrested them, took them to jail. We weren't even allowed outside at all. It was so cold, and that's why I brought up the pernicious anemia thing. If I get too cold, my legs will start to go numb, and then she can't even walk. And then I can't walk at all. And then she had diarrhea in a cell where they had run out of toilet paper. Yeah, and for days, they ran out of pads. Almost all the girls in there happened to just be gross and feel icky because they don't have proper toiletries and stuff. The shower water was so hot that it cooked ramen. That's how hot it was. It was physically can't stand under it for more than 5.
Sorry about that. So I'll be sharing the information here so that you guys are able to watch, but I'll also share I will also be streaming the benefit show as well to get some more eyes on it, because what has happened is absolutely horrific, and this just goes to show why we need to change the system overall. So there you guys go, and all the links to the Indie News Network as well. And thank you for them to have the discussion with Halo Aspen about what they're going through as well. So thank you very much for that, as well as one of the comrades who actually works at the Boston Mutual Aid chapter with Savvy Sabs. Charlie Mack was actually had his Twitter account was suspended. And so for trying to raise money for Aspen And so it's wild to me. But yeah, so if you guys would like to, you guys can actually either donate, or you guys can share the tweet, or if you guys would like to as well, you guys can also let me share the GoFundMe as well. Hang on. If you guys would like to. So they're halfway to their goal so far right now, which is good. But I hope that they are able to get over the top. So all right, so there you go. And let me share the screen just so you guys can see. So here it is. So, all right. All right, so that is that. I want to just make sure to share that as well. Also, there's another thing that I would like to share with you guys as well. So there's a lot of us that are really going through it right now, right? My comrade Rome from RBN, he's having some tough times right now. He is known for the mutual aid and solidarity work he does for communities across this nation. He has crisscrossed this nation. He has came here to help me do mutual aid and help me get started. And so I wanted to make sure that people assist him as well. He is doing the most for the most people. And so I also wanted to share that with him, with you guys. And as we approach the next month, I'd like to, you guys can also donate to his Cash App at Tour for the Poor. So here you guys. Rome is really going through it. I'm going through it too, but you know, there are a lot of people who have given me some assistance already. So I want to make sure that people like Rome also get help and assistance. So if you guys help Aspen and Rome, thank you so very much. Deeply appreciate all the help that can be given to these comrades as well, because it's hard out in these streets, y'all. And you know, keep the people who are doing what they can for you in their thoughts. Mind you, Aspen is also a free Assange activist as well. So to help one another so that we all don't falter. All right. All right. So let me give a thank you to all the people who have made this channel possible. Because without y'all, there would be no channel. And thank you very much. So here we go. We have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters, Comrade Solidarity, Leah Tedesco. All right. Thank you so very much to Leah Tedesco for becoming a member of the channel, so that we are able to continue to do the best work that we can. Also, just to let you guys know, my channel is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you very much for that. Okay, guys. We got to get into this next story, because it's absolutely, y'all got to come in for this one, because I got to have a talk with my fellow Black people in this country. Look, you guys, I hope you hear exactly what Bob Johnson says, because Bob Johnson made it abundantly clear who he's about. Let's get into it. Let me show this, okay? So of course we talked about Bob Johnson and BET, And let's get into the story right now. Look, he said it's just business. It's just business, y'all. Let's get in here. I'm not going to hold and tells you who they are. Believe them the first time. Is anybody surprised about what Bob Johnson said? Who is Bob Johnson? Some of you guys may ask. Bob Johnson was the founder of BET, which stands for Black Entertainment Television. BET has been a staple in Black households for, gosh, how long has it been? What, about 40 years? Since the 80s? Or we kind of grew up on BET when we can afford cable, but then, we had to get rid of the cable because it got a little too expensive. And it was Black owned. Partially. Oh, what do I mean by partially? Oh, it wasn't completely Black owned. Did you know? When it first started, it wasn't completely Black owned. It was mostly Black owned, but it wasn't completely Black owned. Let's get into this because I think it is absolutely important that we talk about exactly what happened in BET with Bob Johnson. And he goes over a bit of the history in regards to BET. And by the way, he is basically speaking, he's speaking to Donnie, right? He's talking to Donnie Simpson. Let me see. Let me make sure I get to the right spot. I want to make sure that I get to the right spot because we got to start this off. We got to start this off just right. Okay. All right. Let me. Okay. Just want to make sure. Okay. All right. And let me share the screen. And let's get into this, y'all, because I'm telling you right now, this is revealing, deeply revealing.
Was it a difficult decision for you?
People ask me that a lot, Donnie, about was it difficult to sell BET, and the answer is no. And the reason is because when I started BET, I had a partner who helped me start the business in terms of the money he put into it.
John Malone?
John Malone. Mm-hmm. President of, at that time, one of the largest cable companies in the country.
Okay, so John Malone. So a lot of people are asking the question, well, who in the hell is John Malone? So I'm going to share with you guys who John Malone is. So you guys can see who this guy is. All right, so make sure I get it large enough so that everybody can see. All right. John Malone, not to be confused with Post Malone, but there's a definite similarity that you guys will notice. All right. So let me share with you guys who John Malone is. All right. So this is John Malone. Okay. one of the other owners of BET from the beginning. Oh, I thought you said it was black owned. Remember, it's mostly black owned. It wasn't completely black owned. Nope. Whoop, there it is. So this is exactly what BET was. See, we got to wrestle with the truth, right? You talk about, oh man, we need to have complete black ownership. Okay, but let me ask you this: is that our apex? Complete black ownership? Is that it? Is that our summit? Is that the highest height that we're supposed to be getting to? Is that what's going to help liberate the black community? Guys, I'm asking these questions because we're going to be getting into this just a little bit more. But I wanted you guys to see who John Malone was so that you guys know what's what. All right? Okay, let's continue.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you need a cable to carry your cable programming, and without it, you wouldn't get the audience. So when John invested with me, and quick story. So John, he was on the board of the cable industry. I got a job working as a lobbyist for the cable industry, and I met him, and he said, "Bob, if you ever have an idea, come talk to me." I said, "Sure." I thought it was just a conversation. But when I thought about the idea of starting BET, and by the way, BET's as an idea was not so much so original, and you'll notice, but it was an extension of what black content was and how it was distributed. Radio, there was plenty of black radio stations.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And so black people got radio music, record music off of radio stations. There was several black magazines, John Johnson of Ebony and Jet being the two most well-known, Essence, and even Black Enterprise. So black people were getting content. They just weren't getting it on a nationwide basis, controlled by black folks. And that was what how BET differentiated itself from everything else. So when John Malone came to me and said, "Bob, you got an idea?" I was basically an extension of print, except it was video. Not an extension of radio station, but it was video. And so by putting all that together, made it happen. So I went to John, and the cable industry was growing into the big, yeah, I'll back you. And I said, John, he said, "Bob, how much would you need to start BET?" And I said, "John, I'm gonna need $500,000. This is back in 1980. Wow. $500,000, which to me, with all the money in the world. So, I grew up in a small town in Freeport, Illinois, 9 or 10 kids. Town got, so you assume there are 3,000 black people in the whole town of Freeport. Now, $500,000 was equal to all the money in the world for every black person in Freeport.
The total income.
Total GDP, gross domestic product of the whole town.
So just to let you guys know, so $500,000 in 1980 has the purchasing power of $1.965 million today. So almost $2 million in today's money. So if somebody came to me today and was like, "Okay, so how much do you need to start a network?" So that's how far and how deep the amount of money was to at least start something. So there you have it.
So I went in and I said, John, I need $500,000. He said, Bob, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy 20% of your company for 180. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to loan you the other 320. Mm-hmm. So that gives you your $500,000, your $500,000. Mm-hmm. And then he said, Bob, I'm going to buy 20%. I'm going to be 20% owner, and you're going to be the 80% owner.
Wow. I
said, John, that's a deal. Mm-hmm. What John didn't know at the time, if he'd reversed the numbers and said, I'll be 80, you'll be 20, I said, John, that's a deal. Yeah.
So here's the thing. And you're going to hear, you'll hear this a lot from Black people, especially people who are within the television and film industry, is that when it came to entertainment for Black people, we weren't seen as bankable. Meaning, for instance, whenever you had a project that was catering to the Black community, it was always a test to see if it would do well there, then they think it could do well with general audiences or mainstream audiences, white folks. So this happened with BET. So of course, this guy, John Malone, was just like, all right, I'll take 20%, because he didn't realize how big BET would be. For him, it was just like, all right, I'll make an extra 20%. Okay, fine. Right? Same thing with Fox, right? A lot of people, when Fox first started out, it was the Black channel. This is how shows like New York Undercover, shows like, I think Martin was on Fox. Yeah. Living Single was on Fox. You had A Living Color, which was on Fox. All these shows were on Fox. And so they tested it out with Black audiences. And then once they saw that it did well with us, then they expanded it. And then they took the Black shows away and replaced them with mainstream or white shows. And they did this with Fox. They did this with what is now known as the CW, but it was actually WB back then. This is when you had Smart Guys, Sister, you had Parenthood, you had the Steve Harvey Show, right? And so that's why, and so you had a lot of these shows that were more Black shows that they basically used Black audiences to test and to see if there's any worth in it. And then if it was worth something, then they would switch it over to predominantly white audiences. Chat. The show Friends is actually a rip-off of Living Single. By the way, Living Single is actually funnier than Friends. I recognize that. It's because it was done on Living Single first. And then they took it and they put it into Friends. So this is exactly how things go within entertainment, right? It's always test it on us, but then once they're done using us as guinea pigs, then they bring it over to the white audience. And then they kind of leave us in the lurch. So that's how it basically is. So this is why he was like, oh yeah, 20%. Because he didn't have much belief that it would do that well. It's the same thing with like movies like Black Panther. right? A lot of people thought it was going to fail, and then it became one of Disney's most biggest films in the MCU because it was just that damn good. So, anywho, let's continue on.
We spent about 35 minutes talking about how I was going to do this and how his cable systems would carry the program. And I said, I'm serious. I went to public affairs school, international affairs school at Princeton and at the University of Illinois history. I never didn't go to Wharton School or Harvard or any of the other business schools.
Wow.
So I said, John, now by this time I had the check. He wrote me the $500,000 check before asking this question. I said, John, I never run a business. What advice can you give me? That's why you didn't get paid a lot. He said, thanks, John. Keep your costs down. So anyway, so he wrote me this $500,000 check, 30 minutes, gave me a little piece of paper about, 2 paragraphs, and off I went to
Amazing.
John invested with me. He invested in me, believing in me. I asked him, I said, John, why didn't you kept putting money, put it in his debt. The debt got paid back over time. I said, John, why didn't you put the money in at BET? He said to me, he said, Bob, I always knew you would work harder for yourself than you would for me. So that's how the business, so when we sold the business to Viacom, the people on MTV and VH1, the business sold for about $4 billion. John never sold a share, so he got his 20% plus, and I got my 80% plus. So really, when you think about it, Donnie, John Malone, had he reversed the numbers, it would have been a completely different financial business. So when after he stayed on the board for 20 years and stayed as chairman, at some point, people want to exit so they can go do other things. And plus the other thing he said to me, he said, Bob, at some point I'm going to want to cash out. And he said, I know you have 2 kids and they're really great kids, but I don't want to work with your kids. I like them, but I want to work with you. So whenever I got to leave, you got to make it so we leave where each one of us get the value that we created. And so I owed him that as an investor and basically the guy who put the first capital. I owed him to give him a maximum return. So that's why I felt I had to sell the business at the highest value because of my partnership with John Malone. And to this day, we're still friends and good relationships. He's an investor with me in other businesses as well. But I looked at it, and the other is, I looked at...
Okay, so he could have stayed on and just paid. He could have just stayed on and paid him instead, and then bought, basically the 20% out, right? Let's say if it's valued at $4 billion, okay, you got 20%, then okay, we would sell you 20% of how much it costs. So 20% of $4 billion would be do the math, JB. What, $800,000? I'm sorry, $800 million. Sorry. So could have just been like, all right, well, I'll give you $800 million. Because you started off giving me 130. You started off giving me 130,000, and then I'm sorry, 120,000, and then you put in another 380,000. So that's 500,000. Now it's valued at $4 billion, which means that I'm giving you $800 million. $800 million now for 20% of the company. Could he have done that? Own 100% instead. And he could have kept on selling it to Viacom. But he didn't. He sold it because Bob Johnson saw dollar signs. Let's continue on. Don't you know no good? Don't you know no good?
BET from the start as a business, not a family heirloom.
Okay, let's go back just a second. Let's I want you guys to get the full context of this part.
And good relations. He invested with me in other businesses as well. Yeah. But I looked at it, and the other is, I looked at BET from the start as a business, not a family heirloom that would be passed. I looked at it as a business. And even in terms of the black community, because a lot of folks in the black community gave me a lot of negative reaction because of, and not only the fact that we played a lot of videos, almost everything was videos, but also because we didn't delve into deep social, cultural, political programming. We just didn't do it. And so.
Okay, so first things first. He did it for the money. Cream, cash rules everything around me. Dollar bill, y'all. That's exactly what he did it for. It wasn't because, oh, well, I want nothing to do with the culture. It had everything to do with business. Everything. Bob Johnson became a billionaire after that sale. I think he sold it. I think his share was $1.5 billion. And so ultimately, wasn't it about the culture? No, it wasn't about the culture. The thing is, and that's the crazy part, I'm telling you right now, to anybody, especially Black Americans, especially you freedmen out there, I'm going to tell you right now, and yes, I am a freedman too, but Black capitalism ain't going to save us. No way, no how. Also, freedman capitalism is not going to save us anyway. At all. Here you got somebody who, at least I think, is freedman. And guess what? He did it for the money. What's the difference between him and Jay-Z? What's the difference between him and Sean Carter? Like, and the thing is like, was it really just about investing in the Black community, or was it just a business investment for him? And then, and you know what's funny about people? People will go, well, it's not his responsibility to, to do things for us. We should be able to do things ourselves. I'm sorry, but what about talking about us sticking together? See, here's the thing I dislike about my own community. When it's convenient, oh man, we got to stick together. We got to stick together with the Black community, blah, blah, blah. But then what? Make that brother a billionaire. And then it's, oh, well, he ain't got real responsibilities to the rest of y'all. Y'all got to start doing everything on your own. You better, I got mine. You better go get yours. Suddenly, everybody turns white. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm just like, wait a minute. You guys turned into capitalists? overnight, you guys forget that, oh, I thought we were supposed to keep that ladder down so that everybody can come up. No, 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 no. Until that person becomes very super rich, then it's seen as okay for them to pull the ladder up behind them. And then people start making excuses for them. And people will talk about, oh my God, it was because of the videos. Maybe. But mostly, it was because of what are you doing for the Black community? You're just trying to make some coin. And that's it. What's the difference between you and a white capitalist now? Oh, I thought so. That's the thing. And when we talk about Black capitalism is not going to save us, this is what I'm talking about. The same thing with the Byron Allens, the Oprah Winfreys, the Tyler Perrys, and all them other Black billionaires. How have we actually came up since they became billionaires? Somebody want to tell me? Also, I'm going to say another thing. There is too much classism in the Black community. Classism is what keeps us divided. We got classism up the wazoo. Why? Why are we trying to imitate people, the parasite class, and doing what they do? And then we want to talk about, oh man, we were so much better back in the day. You want to know why we were so much better back in the day? Because we had community. Because we had a symbiotic relationship with one another. And now that's symbiotic counting on other Black people just because they're on food stamps. And now those food stamps are about to get cut off in November. Oh, but we need to come together. Then stay together. Stop cheering for the ones that are Black faces in high places that exploit their people. And people are like, well, Bob Johnson didn't exploit nobody, but he got money from somebody who did. Because that dude in 1980 loaned $380,000 and then invested for a 20% stake. How did somebody like that get that much money? Was it just because he just worked really hard, or was it because he exploited his way to get that much money? And so what did he do? He saw a business opportunity. He saw Bob Johnson. He was like, maybe that's a bankable idea. So then he gave it to Bob Johnson. That money was raised on exploitation. So therefore, Bob Johnson used the money. And then on top of that, the suggestion from that guy that he got the money from, John Malone, was keep your costs high and keep your expenses low. Meaning, don't pay people too much. And he joked even with the host, saying, oh, see, that's why you didn't make that much money. I was stiffing you so that I can make more money. And he laughs about it to his face. The gall of these billionaires, of these affluent people, no matter what color, and they'll laugh in their face. See, that's why I didn't pay you much, because I wanted to keep the rest of that profit for myself. It's stupid. Because here's the thing. This is why we got to look at these billionaires for who they really are.
So, in fact, when I started BET, and every time I talk to a lot of white folks, and I say, oh, I'm starting this thing called Black Entertainment Television. Almost to a person, they come back, oh, that's a great idea, Black educational television. They just couldn't imagine that I would take this opportunity of a new technology of cable and use it for entertainment purposes. Mm-hmm. They wanted it to be an educational, cultural, reach out to Black folk kind of thing in a way of social renewal and social redemption. Yeah. And that was not the way I started BET. I started as a business based around a music video model. Mm-hmm. And it's a hell of a model, Donnie, because when you think about it, the business was free music videos.
Right.
Didn't pay for them.
Right.
Cable carriage, and they would pay me a subscriber fee for carrying the free videos. Yeah. And then the advertisers would pay me advertising to advertise in the free videos. Yeah, right. So how do you not make money? Free programming, and you get paid twice.
Wow.
You can't beat that.
No, you can't beat that.
Now, how much investment, real investment, was given? I'm not just talking about, oh, give a couple Black people a job. I'm talking about really investing into Black programs. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about real, tangible, mutual aid done for the Black community. How much of that was actually done? Yep. I'm not talking about this BET program was brought to you by McDonald's. No. Brought to you by 3M. I don't care. I don't want it to be through some big corporation where it doesn't fundamentally change the system. And that's the problem. A lot of the affluent and rich Black people, the Black boule, they believe in the system because they are the exception, not the rule. And they think that they are the rule because they somehow made it, when in reality, most of us, if not almost all of us, are still stuck at the bottom, while just a small few of them have gotten to shake hands and golf at the country clubs with the rich and famous. So we talk about, oh, well, why was BET sold? Because Bob Johnson said, just like dude from Star Wars, the business is business, huh?
And so that's what BET was. But the point was that it also, over time, was a statement about what it means to have a Black voice controlled by Black speakers.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's kind of what I was trying to get to with in selling it. You know, you give that up where you don't control it. It's felt like, I don't know that I would ever sell it because, you know, for me, it would be that family heirloom. It was on the past. But I look at it and go, well, but Bob's a businessman. This is what Bob does. And I think that it's also important for this reason, because that moment created our first Black billionaire. We need to see that. That's important.
No, it is not. Absolutely not. When in reality, Bob Johnson was the very small, minute, microscopic exception. And so before there was an Oprah Winfrey, there was a Bob Johnson, the first black billionaire. Before Tyler Perry, there was Bob Johnson. You're looking at the first black billionaire in American history. And the thing is like, how much has your life gotten better since Bob Johnson became a billionaire? No. Tell me in the comments, in the chat, tell me right now, how has your life significantly improved materially since Bob Johnson had became a billionaire? Your life as a black person, how has your life gotten better? Don't worry, I'll wait. Because the problem is that this is the bug, this is the virus of individualism that hits us in the head. Let's do it, that means that we can do it too. And guess how many people are doing it? You got all these black dudes that got low top fades with a lineup, dressing up in suits, joining Toastmasters, trying to talk about, oh, I got the millionaire mindset, when in fact they barely even got 6 figures. And then on top of that, they're looking down on people who simply got food stamps because they're being exploited as workers. I'm going to tell you a fact. Capitalism has done nothing significantly to improve the lives of black people on this land ever since our ancestors were brought here in chains. In fact, it was capitalism that brought our ancestors here in chains. So why in the hell are we allowing ourselves to embrace a system that enslaved our ancestors and put us in this position in the first place? It don't make no damn sense. Why are we doing that? Why do we continue to allow the enemy, the parasite class, to play in our faces and tell us, oh, well, you just need to be more like us? Oh, white people don't even have it that good right now because look what they're going through. You think Donald Trump and Larry Ellison and Tim Cook and all these and Elon Musk, you think they actually care about even poor white people? The hell they do. They don't give a damn about them. And if you think all these poor white folks, you think they're actually doing that much better? Now, I will say this. They're not doing that much better. The only benefit they have is the white privilege that they have, that their life is not made worse by the color of their skin. But at the same time, ultimately, they're now caught in the crossfire because now the billionaire class is seeing them as just as expendable as they saw us historically. Are we still doing worse? Yeah. But poor white people, they're starting to feel what we've been feeling for a long time. So why are we going to embrace a system that hasn't even worked for the majority of them? What? Let's finish this up.
Too. So all that's the criticism that some people gave, for selling it, the other side of it is that this is something that's very important for us to see as a people.
Yeah, well, to me, the criticism was not so much, I think to some extent, it wasn't so much a reflection on BET, the entity. It was an emotion about the fact that we were the only one of a kind.
Yeah.
Had there been 3 or 4 BETs or versions of BET, like there's TV One and BET.
Yeah, right.
I think the criticism would have been sort of broad brushed across all of us.
Right.
So
right.
everybody picked up on. So when Nelly did his video called Tip Drill, it came back on us. So we would hear that kind of thing. Or when people would talk about all the, believe it or not, how come there's so many light-skinned women in videos? I never made a music video.
Yeah.
But I did put them on.
Yeah, yeah.
And I didn't deal with saying you got to have a gun in video, or I got to show women and men and sexual things in music video. It was the industry.
Yeah.
But that was what I got because I was the only black game in town. And anytime you're the only black thing, it'd all be together to move us together. If they don't think you're taking the lead or you're it, they got nobody else to criticize but you. So that was sort of the is today. Such a dominant cultural force is because when I sold BET, I insisted that the leadership of BET and the cultural statement of BET remained the same under Viacom. And it did. Management almost went wholesale over there. You know, they all left BET and they all went over there to run it under Viacom.
Right.
And
okay, so blackface is in hot place. First of all, let me tackle this. We talked about the complaints about the music videos. And about the music videos, right? For instance, right? Colorism was a big thing in music videos. Like the only love interest you ever really saw in music videos was light skin. All right. Here's the issue though. He's like, I didn't make the music videos. I didn't tell them that they had to have guns in music videos, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, yeah, but you let them in. I didn't tell these people to, sell drugs in my house. I didn't tell these people to do all this promiscuous stuff in my house, but you let them in your house. You let them through the door. You unlocked it, you opened it, and you said, come on in. So you got to take at least a little bit of accountability for that, Bob. Because the whole, I'm just a businessman, doesn't really work with the black community, especially since you're trying, number one, you name it Black Entertainment Television. Number two, is supposed to encompass all things that are Black entertainment, which also, and social commentary. So it to have. Now, this is when I say also that parents need to be able to monitor what their kids are watching. Unfortunately, there's a lot of parents, particularly ones who, you got a lot of single moms and dads that were out there too, that were working like crazy. And because they were working and they didn't make enough, well, guess what? They couldn't be home with the kids and they couldn't monitor what the kids were watching. But the problem is like you're just saying, well, I'm just a businessman. Okay, well, then that shows us how much you think about the Black community, because you don't really regard culturally how we're doing, or really on a systemic level, you don't really regard how we're doing because you just concerned about making your money. And this is the problem. Because for you, it's an individual pursuit. Whereas some people like myself is thinking about this on a collective basis. Because if we continue to this individual pursuit, then guess what? We're not actually going to succeed as a people. Black liberation is even further than we would like for it to be, because you have a lot of Black folks like Bob Johnson and Oprah Winfrey and Tyler Perry's that are just in it for the money, and they're not actually trying to uplift Black people systemically. order for me to be able to eat, I just need to see somebody with some food. Oh, I see somebody with food. That means it's possible for me to be able to get that food. But the problem is that what happens when all the food or most of the food is hoarded by that one person? How am I going to, I may be able to get a couple crumbs, but then what's left? Am I being too harsh on Bob Johnson? I don't know. I just have extreme distaste for billionaires. I have an extreme distaste for people who are parasites on the workers. And I don't care what color identity they have. A billionaire is a billionaire is a billionaire. I don't care. Am I too harsh? Am I? Because I don't believe I am. I just believe that some people are going to be like, "Oh man, JB, why you going so hard on him?" Because we were played into thinking that him being individualistic and acquiring that much wealth was good for all of us, when in fact it never was. That's what pisses me off. I'm going to share, if you guys want to watch the rest of that interview with Bob Johnson. But it just feels like we're expected to just accept people who continue to exploit just because they're Black. Oh, see, they can exploit just like the white billionaires can. So therefore, oh, well, they made it. See, there's one like us that can exploit. It's just like Barack Obama. See, we got like us that can also commit war crimes. See? It's stupid on his face. And that's why, I'm as, I guess I'm as I am, is because we actually should be aiming much higher. And there's somebody who also aimed really high. And they made a point back in the day. Before I get to this, let me share this, because I want you guys to know that BET was bought by Viacom. So Bob Johnson sold BET to Viacom for $4 billion. Viacom merged with Paramount. I hope you guys know where I'm going with this. So let me share this. So I was asking if Paramount had bought Viacom. The internet said no, Paramount did not buy Viacom. Instead, the two companies merged in 2019 to form a new company called Viacom CBS, which was later renamed Paramount Global. In 2025, Paramount Global merged with Skydance Media to form Paramount Skydance Corporation. So now, I want to share this, because Paramount Skydance Corporation, let me make sure it went away again. I hate when it does that. Okay. So yes, so Paramount and Viacom merged. So let me share this with you guys, okay? It's not what I want. Now, this Skydance Media, okay, led by David Ellison. I want you guys to remember that last name, especially David Ellison. completed its merger with Paramount, named Paramount a Skydance Corporation. The merger was a result of $8 billion deal that combined the two media companies, making Skydance the majority owner of the new entity. This transaction follows an extended approval process by regulators. Okay. Why is that name so familiar? I'm going to share you guys who David Ellison is. All right. So let me share this with you guys. Is an American film producer serving as chairman and chief executive officer of Paramount Skydance since August of 2025. He is the son of Oracle Corporation co-founder Larry Ellison, the second wealthiest individual in the world. So now BET is owned by a Zionist. There you have it. BET is owned by a Zionist. It's now within the Zionist framework. And remember what they said, right? Remember what Netanyahu was talking about? Oh, we need to take over all these different entities, especially the Black community. I'm going to tell you something, the fact that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge. U.S. culture is driven by the Black American community. That's how U.S. culture is driven. If you control the culture, then you can control the United States and how the information. If you can control the culture, who controls the culture? Think about it. Think about the words, the lingo, the music. Culturally, blackness, Black Americanness is all throughout America. Think about a lot of the inventions. Think about the music. Also own MTV. Who was the first Black person to ever be featured on MTV and have their videos shown? Michael Jackson. Before that, MTV did not want to show any Black people. The origins of country music starts off with Black people. The origins of rock and roll starts off with Black people. The origins of R&B, hip hop, ska, electronica, disco, it all starts off with Black people. So here's the thing, that the person who controls and can manipulate the culture will be able to have a large enough influence over America and how people think and act. Therefore, it would behoove Zionists in their twisted brain to have more influence over Black Americans than they have already. And they think that they can do it through owning media like BET. And so now, and then Viacom merged with Paramount, and now Paramount got sold, and now it's being owned by Larry Ellison's son. Guess what? You know, if we really want to come together as a community, we got to leave capitalism behind, baby. BET should have been made into a worker cooperative. I stand 10 toes down with a full chest. BET should have been made into a worker cooperative. It should have been worker owned. I said what I said. Instead, Bob Johnson had to get his. So I wanted to share that. And I want to share this too, because this is why let's go to the legend himself, Comrade Chairman Fred Hampton.
Attorney and the state's attorney's office has reasons to see Fred Hampton in jail. We've got a new state's attorney, you see. And he said already what he thought about people that had different political beliefs than he has. His speeches sound somewhat like those of Hitler, and we know why he wants to see Fred Hampton put in jail. Why do I have a lot of arrests? Because of harassment. Why is that harassment? Because the people that harass me have set up a problem that made me disagree with them violently, and they set up this problem in order to exploit me and other people like me. And why they want to get rid of me? Because I'm saying something that might wake up some other exploited people and some other oppressed people, and if all these people ever get together, then these pigs that are exploiting us, we'll be able to run them into the lake. That's why they want to get rid of us. And it's just, it's sort of like a primary thing with me. I'm the first move that they'll make. I'm a part of the organization who will be the first organization they'll move on, because I happen to be a part of the organization, the Black Panther Party. That is the only organization, in fact, that has came out and stood up loud and clear and said that we don't care what anybody says, whether they have guns or not, and badges or 18 uniforms. If whenever they step outside the bounds of legality into the bounds of illegality, then we'll blow their brains out if they're bothering the people. And what makes them mad about that? They're constantly bothering the people. Anybody that's out there for the protection of the people happens to be in direct conflict with them. What makes them mad about it? What makes them mad about it is that they have black people and white poor people and red poor people and Puerto Rican poor people and Latin American Puerto Rican people of poor people of all descents. They had them caught up in movements based on racism when the Black Panther Party stood up and said that we don't care what anybody says. We don't think you fight fire with fire best. We think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We said we're not going to fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism.
He said what he said. You don't fight fire with fire, you fight fire with water. You don't fight racism with racism, you fight racism with solidarity. Meaning, if you got any of these bigoted thoughts, you got to throw that stuff away so that we can come together. You don't fight capitalism with black capitalism, you fight it with socialism. That means workers coming together. My black brothers and sisters and siblings, are you actually working to make it so that it's better for everybody instead of just a small few? Even if it's a small few of black people, no, you don't do that. If we're going to fight for everybody, we got to fight for everybody. If you're talking about you want to fight for the black community, then that means you got to fight for the entirety of the black community. If you're talking about just freedmen, then all freedmen. Stop being classist within the freedmen community. Stop being sexist within the freedmen community. Both sides, right? Because there's misogyny and there's misandry. We got to stop them both. We got to stop the homophobia. Look, there are some freedmen, LGBTQ, that we are discriminated against all the time. I'm one of them. What about those of us who may be neurodivergent or maybe disabled? If you want to talk about just being Black American, you want to go across the diaspora, that too. And the thing is like Black capitalism is just a rebrand of the same old tired ass capitalism that's kept us in change for a long ass time. So why are we embracing a system that keeps people in chains? Why are we going to exploit our own people? Just so that a small few of us can come up. So this is why I have the opinions, and this is why I'm as harsh as I am on a community that I love. Because I see the potential in us to do so much better. Our voice as a community and as a cultural giant that is equal, equitable, and egalitarian, but across all communities, so that everybody can actually come up. No more Bob Johnsons. We need more Fred Hamptons. Much appreciate it. We're going to go into the final segment very soon. I'm just going to do a really quick excuse me, over some of the comments in the chats. Let me check to see if we have anything on a Rumble side. All right, everything is that's crazy, right? Larry Ellison's son now over BET. That's crazy, man. Oh my gosh. Anyway, let me check on see if we have any gifted subs. Looks like we're good there, but we do have a comment. So, all right, we're good. Okie dokie. Make sure I take that down. Okay. All right, let's get into this. So I'm going to go over the ones that I started earlier because I really want to go over these because I don't want to miss those. So Edward says, BET should be a cooperative company, reaches out to Black audiences as its base. It is owned by Zionists. Jacqueline says, don't know what BET is, but I suppose I'll find out when I watch the stream. And now you know, and knowing is half the battle. If you know, you know. Michael Pan, good to see you, Michael. Says JB, what would it take for Americans? Well, it would take a company that now owns it to be willing to sell it back to the workers collectively so that they can own it collectively and operate it democratically. The thing is they're not just going to up and sell it. Now, there could be laws set in place that call for, breaking up these big conglomerates. But basically the system that we're creating monopolies, because that's ultimately the final form that corporations take, because capitalism is predicated on the creating and gobbling up of all the other industries around it, so it has 100% market share. And this is exactly what it's trying to do. So it does not want to have any competition. That being said, I can see a company like this new one that now owns BET. They're going to also own Aspire and TV One, and hell, I think I now consider Tubi to be a Black television station, even though it may not be Black owned, but there's a lot of Black people who watch Tubi. So it would literally take either a law being passed, or it would take something more drastic. It would take something more drastic. a full systemic change supportively. That's ultimately what would need to happen. Thank you very much for the question, Michael. Good to see you in the chat, by the way. This boy had a lot to say. I had a lot that conversation. I was just like, you know what? Harsh, but it just makes me itch, man. Roger says Fox may be a bad example, seeing it was the Tracy Ullman show that kicked it off, providing an avenue for Simpsons, paving the way for Married with Children. I mean, that is kind of true, but at the same time, they also had a heavy show for Black audiences, right? And then they stepped away from it. So yeah. Yep, UPN and WB also. Jacqueline says, was the Cosby Show the first show that showed with Black people was seen as bankable? See, here's the thing. Black shows were always you can go to the Jeffersons, which was basically the spinoff of All in the Family. You can go to, but the thing is, like, these shows were watched primarily by Black people, but they made money, right? And this is why the person who was, a lot of the ideas from the shows came from Black people, but then the producers would take the ideas and then make them into shows, but they wouldn't give any of the benefits to the Black people who actually came up with the ideas. And so they were bankable, but it's just they weren't as embraced by as wide of an audience. As far as like, for instance, different shows was two poor Black boys that were basically brought into a well-to-do household, age for, because what's happening was more working class. Good Times was more working poor class Black people. Sanford and Son was kind of in between working poor and working class. Let me see. And then you had shows like The Cosby Show, which showed more middle class venturing on affluent. And then from that, then you went up, and then you got to like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which showed, well, what if we had rich Black people, right? And so, yeah, so that's, as far as being bankable, they didn't have as wide. They definitely did have a bankable audiences, because Black people, they see themselves on TV. Well, they'll support it, especially if it's a good story or if it has, or if it's very relatable. So, and for a lot of us, it's nostalgic. So yeah. Yes, Roger says UPN and WB also. Yep. Rondo says New York Undercover. And Rock. Y'all remember that? Yep. Jack was never watched Friends. Didn't fancy the sound of it. Oh my gosh. Stila says, when you think about it, JB, isn't this how all the United States multi-trillion-dollar cottage industries have gotten their core audience and consumers? It's a capitalist hustle. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Sela says white establishment mobsters pushed him out like they've done with most Black and Latina Hispanic owner businesses. He didn't. If there's a backstory to this that he's not talking about, that would be interesting. Let me see. Okay, Rondo said MTV, VH1, BET were all the same operation, just formulated for different demographics. It was all mind control operations. I don't young white audiences. BET was to Black audiences. I don't know what VH1 was centered towards. I do remember pop-up video though. Yeah. Roger says traditional businesses setup hierarchy is apathetic and amoral. It will do whatever it needs to meet their bottom line. If doing the right thing means they'll get more, then yes, they'll do it. If not, let me see. If not, well, yeah. Edward says Bob Johnson went for the money and left Black people who work for BET plus out in the cold. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember this. Rondo said MTV wouldn't even play Michael Jackson until David Bowie embarrassed them about it. Yeah, I remember that. David Bowie put them on blast, boy. Also, David Bowie's wife was Black. Iman, the model. I think she's originally from let me see. Or is she, or was she Somali British? I think she was Somali. Anyway, Rondo says OG Bobby Johnson is a Freemason. That explains how he was able to get that kind of money in 1980. Oh, I don't know that much about Freemasons. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot I don't know in that regard. I know a lot of Black people, especially a lot of older Black men, typically were in that sphere. Sean on the kick side, he says even Angela Rye's smug behind be classist as hell. Also, living single absolutely better than friends. F classism. Yeah, living single is hilarious down to this day, and I'm telling you, they did the damn thing on that show. It was funny. Violence says the tyranny of the visual dominating society. It's all about how things look. Yeah, that's the only problem. It's like they all focus on optics rather than actually focusing on more of the cultural substance. Roger says, I had a brother customer of my Gen X, vote blue no matter who, MSNBC watcher, thinking the Dems are great. I contradicted what he said, but then he said, but we have more Black people in elected office than ever. I retorted, yet we're still at the bottom. That's nothing to brag about. Yeah. It's like if we're still at the bottom, then guess what? What benefit have we actually had? Good to see you, Sensei. This question from Roger asks, JB, how do you spot insecure Black people? The answer is when they get money, they let everyone know it, not necessarily through their words, but what they purchase. This is why when they enter that life, they make it easy for the feds to come get them. Like Al Sharpton? Look, I'm not going to pick on Al Sharpton. He didn't need the money for his perm. Let me see here. Who we got here? S says they want media control to rewrite history. Oh, that's for damn sure. Absolutely correct. That's a good point, Roger. Roger says BET probably would work better as a consumer co-op than a work co-op. This way, viewers would have direct input. Those who run it would have to get permission from viewers to do things. Gotcha. Oh yeah. Michael Pan says, "How about A Different World?" Look, I need to watch all 6 seasons again. A Different World was that was it was also thought provoking. It was a great show. Great show. Yeah. All right. So gotta get going on the next final story. I went longer on this than I wanted to, but with that being said, let's get into the final story of today. So, of course, we talked about Hurricane Melissa, and then we talked about Bob Johnson and selling BET. Now we got to talk about generational or class divide, and this is going to be a reaction, and I think this is going to be a good one because about the generational divide, because a lot of people tend to blame different generations for different things, and I think we are kind of losing a plot there, and so we're going to be getting into this. So this is going to be a really good one. We're going to be talking about the generation class or generational inequality, and so I think this is going to be a interesting one to get into, because ultimately what has to happen is we got to realize like what is really going on between the generations and how we can actually push for something better. So let me make sure I'm ready. All right, we are good to go. Okay, boomer. Buying Starbucks, and they just need to stop eating. Z, they just need to work hard, get a job, and just go to college, just like the rest of us did. Gen X, who's Gen X? This is basically what we hear all the time, day in, day out, whether you're on social media, whether you are, in public talking to somebody, whether you're in private talking to somebody got something always to say about which generation, right? And who's involved in each generation. The problem is this fault. This particular generation has that fault, and it's going on. There's 2 gentlemen that actually had a conversation that I really want to get into and react to, because I think that it is best for us to start looking at it from a class perspective, as well as I think one of the biggest issues is we're seeing past each other and not seeing each other. And so I also want to kind of fill in some of the gaps that I think that they missed a little bit in this conversation. Granted, I do not have this gentleman's Patreon, so I didn't get to listen to the entire conversation on his patron only stream for this. This is basically the clip version that he posted on YouTube. So we'll just be reacting to this. But I think there's some points that were missed upon that I want to fill the gaps in. But he makes a lot of great points in this as well. So this is from Damon Cassidy. He says, why every generation keeps getting poorer. So we're going to get into this. And I'm not going to watch the entire video because I want you guys to finish it up on yourself. But I want to talk about some key points.
While Gen Z faces an American dream that now costs over $100,000 a year in all 50 states, forced to navigate the most expensive housing market in history and a dollar worth 86% less than it was for baby boomers, it's easy to forget that during the 1980s, boomers also endured one of the largest reductions in real wages since the Great Depression, a housing market that saw prices increase by over 85%, factories closing as millions of jobs were outsourced overseas, all while the nation remained consumed by the Cold War and the aftermath of Vietnam. Well, in order to understand the root of the nation's growing generational divide, I spoke with Freddie Smith, a real estate agent and associate broker who has built a career exposing the data behind America's generational inequality and the rising cost of living, where he broke down which generation has actually had it worse and why we continue to ignore the real culprits behind this economic collapse.
The boomer advice is typically to, you need to save your money, stop with the coffee, stop with all the stuff, quit buying TVs and phones because you need to save, because the luxuries in the 1980s were actually really expensive. So they were living in, because we do have the luxuries of being able to have multiple teams. They had, their rent, however, was probably around $200 to $250, which was very cheap. But if they wanted to buy 3 TVs like most families have today, they're $1,000 a piece back in the 80s. So it'd be $3,000. A CD player was $500, a cell phone was $2,000, a computer was $2,500, a microwave was $500. Them $8,500 to buy that, which would be equivalent to 3.5 times their rent, 3.5 years their rent. So, yeah, and $8,500 is also equivalent to a 20% down payment on a $40,000 home.
So let's start here, because this is something that a lot of people don't take into consideration, which I think was actually a really good analysis here. And so one of the things that I think about, my grandmother, right? First came out, she was one of the first people to actually own a microwave. And I remember that microwave. Number one, that microwave cooked fast. That was a microwave, okay? But also remember when Grandma and Pop used to have the floor model TV? You know how expensive those floor model TVs were? They were so expensive that you didn't get a new one if something wrong happened to it. You got it repaired. Right? You didn't go out and get a new one. You got, and you be passing those shops at TV repair. Yep. And so when it came to televisions, when it came to just look at the prices, how much for the first video, which would basically is this Nintendo and Super Nintendo, right? Remember how expensive those were? Like, even go back to the 90s, a Sony PlayStation was $400 in the 90s money. You know how expensive that would be today? That's the equivalent of somewhere north of $900. A PS5 is about half that much. And so you think about like a lot of the money that were spent on things that were considered luxuries back then, but now it's considered standard today. Like, you have to have a computer, right? I'll give you guys a full disclosure. My computer cost me what, $450, right? I got it when we had the stimulus check from Biden during the pandemic. That's when I got my computer. I actually used stimulus money to get this computer. Great investment, right? But my computer, with the amount of memory and everything that it has today, this computer easily would have been $2,500 to $3,000 in the 1980s, right? So necessities were cheap. Luxuries were expensive. And now we're seeing a flip where luxuries are cheap, but necessities are expensive, and things have flipped. And I think this is what's important. Let's continue.
So if you think about like the boomers thinking of this going, if you have 3 TVs, a cell phone, a computer, because we couldn't have any of that, that was our 20% down payment for our house, or that was 3.5 years of our rent on those luxuries. Where today, 3 TVs, music and Netflix, $100, music, Netflix, and subs, say $100. A cell phone $1,000. A computer can be $500. Microwave $200. Is $2,400. And our rent is typically around $2,000. So it's essentially all those luxuries that were equivalent to a 20% down payment for them equals about one month is our luxury now. And the final button on it, for the average house, you would need probably around $60,000 for a down payment. So the $2,400, if you just didn't have any TVs, no subs, no cell phone, no computer, no microwave, you would still be 60 grand short of a 20% down payment.
I want you guys to gauge exactly the powerful point he made. Your necessities are now your luxury. Rent is now a luxury. Luxury. Right? Your electric bill is becoming a luxury, especially now since we have all these AI data centers that are popping up. The necessities are the luxuries now. You can jam to music. You can have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,000 songs in your tiny little device here, right? But even though you can barely live where you're at because you can't afford the rent, when back in the day, in the 80s, you either had, a record player with the turntable, and then you had all those records, and all those records cost, collectively like $600, $700, $800, right? Even more. Or, you had a stereo with a nice tape deck, or you had the boombox, which you kind of like also constantly had. Your luxuries cost more, but at least you could afford food. At least you could afford electricity. At least you could afford your rent. God. Yeah, I got music on my phone, but I'll be out in the street. Let's continue on. Great points by him. Great
But
points.
back in the 80s, even though the luxuries were expensive, things like education and healthcare, cars, gas, like everything was cheaper. The necessities were cheaper.
One of the other things that I think about So you were raised during a period of time where your dollar was worth something. There was peace and prosperity for the most part. and so quickly that went away. There's a statistic where the dollar lost about 53.7% of its value between 1970 and 1980. That's 10% more than we've experienced the last 2 decades. And so we've seen that since the loss of labor unions, wages just aren't even remotely close. Pensions started to get degraded during that period of time. Minimum wage was not raised once during Ronald Reagan's era. And because so many jobs were outsourced during that period of time, in Reagan's 2 terms, were predominantly in service-related industries. And we can see we are now a service economy. We don't have that manufacturing base that we once had. And because we were also in that unique period of time to where everybody kind of needs to go to college, but high school still meant something, but blue collar doesn't mean anything now. A lot of these high school graduates that couldn't afford to go to college either were having to deal with the ramifications of the Vietnam War and trying to recover from that, or they were going into service-related jobs, and they just were never able to get they weren't able to live a part of the same economy that the people that could afford to go to college, that could afford to do some of these other things that we've heard about. And that's what's so important to acknowledge, the fact of there's so many different categories of the baby boomer generation because they're so big. Everything, but also just the fact that the dollar could purchase something for you is something that we have to admit. Even though you lost 50%,
that's another great point, is that to somebody who's a baby boomer, oh my God, you spent $8 on a meal? Back then, $8 could get me 3 or 4 meals. Why are you spending your money so loosely, when in reality, try to find a meal for less than $8. You can't find it because the dollar has lost so much value to the point now where you have to spend that much. Even boomers underestimated how much more expensive things would get. This is why a lot of boomers are actually returning to work now, because their retirement is running out. And it's not just that because they're living longer, but because things have gotten so expensive to the point where they can't even afford to continue. And these boomers have Medicare, but then they got to pay that 20% that Medicare doesn't cover. They may have a house, but because of growing expenses, they may have to take out, equity out of their house in order to be able to pay for some things that's absolutely necessary. And a lot of people think, oh, boomers had it good. Not all. A lot of boomers did not have it good. A good chunk of them had it better than we did, but a lot of them didn't have it that good. So I want to dismiss with that, because there's a lot of boomers that are still going through it, still worried about housing, still worried about healthcare, still worried about transportation, and worried about being able to make their rent next month, on top of still trying to learn new technology that has whisked by them during their working years because they were so busy just learning email. Now they're like, oh my God, what the hell is this social media now? And so it's gotten that deep. So I see a lot of people blaming boomers, and some of the people who are, who are responsible for what has happened, they may be of boomer age, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to blame every person that is part of a particular generation, because it's not the generation as a whole that has done horrible things to keep the system that it is in place. And some of those people are also part of Gen X, millennials, and now Gen Z. So it's not exclusive to just boomers. Let's continue on.
I think that's fair. I think that's how we have to look at the generations, because it wasn't a cakewalk. I think sometimes when we critique the boomers, they're quick to be like, it was not easy. Like, what are you talking about? And it's like, we just mean the cost of living to wages, essentially, is all we mean. We know that your houses were smaller and you had no air conditioning and you were going through all of this other shit now in our own, like, Americans are a little, as much as things are expensive, we aren't going through as much here as people were back in the day. But it was also a different time. Like, consumerism has changed, and what we consider fun, and if cell phones existed and DoorDash existed, I'm sure busy families would have used DoorDash in a pinch in the 80s as well. You're a product of your time. But yeah, dude, that's such a good breakdown, because then the wealth hoarding just began. It's kind of wild. I'll tell you, the most crazy statistic to me is that in the 1980, I don't know exactly what year, but let's say $40 trillion of wealth adjusted for inflation. And today in 2025, we have 170 trillion. So it has gone up $130 trillion. But the sad part, when you talk about trickle down, only 2 trillion of the 130, only 2 made its way. Isn't that wild? And you look at the bottom 50%, there's 175 million Americans in the bottom 50, and they share $5 trillion of wealth. The top 10% have 110 trillion. And a lot of those top 10 percenters, hardworking folks that played the system. I'm not saying that, but the top 1%, the top 1%, I think the top 1% actually holds 50 trillion. The top 1% with 3.5 million people.
Okay, so I'm going to slightly disagree. I don't think the top 10% actually worked that much harder than the rest of us. I don't think they did. I think that they just got a bigger chunk of the pie, while the rest of us are continuing to be exploited. See, here's the thing. We always blame the billionaires, which rightly so, but we also got to blame the 100 millionaires too. We got to blame them too. We got to blame the people who are, who have net worths, who are making 7, 8, and 9 figures. We gotta put the heat on them too. Not just the billionaires, but the people who make 7, 8, and 9 figures too. We gotta put the heat on them too. Because a huge chunk of them, they didn't get there by just working hard either. Let's call a thing. And there's only 10% of them. So, a lot of people, it's not the whole, they worked hard for what they got. That's debatable, because a lot, 99% of all of us at the bottom
percent. I think the top 1% actually holds 50 trillion. The top 1 than the bottom 175 million people combined. And that's just what I point to and go, I'm not for socialism or capitalism. I'm for the system we have. If you were 50 years, that would have organically given 20% of what you have.
Let me continue.
Million, you've only got 80 million. You don't have 10 million, you have 8 million. Nothing changes. But if they would have used that 20% difference in stock options and stock programs, in financial education, we all would have been lifted up. So it's like, that's the whole thing, like the trickle down. It was just like, they just kept doing everything they could for shareholders and for profits. And around the 80s, it really did feel, I'm curious your take on this. I don't think it was anyone to like point fingers. It was like kind of a collective maybe, but it felt like we might have had a country, the United States of America, up until the 80s. And then it was almost like sold off for parts to become a corporation. Like now I think we're like America Inc., where it's.
Okay, so let me break something. Here's the thing. Technically, you are for capitalism. The reason why is because you want to put guard. You are a reformist, basically meaning you want to keep the same system in place, but you just don't want people to be exploited as much. You still want to keep some exploitation in place, but you don't want it harsh. That's the problem when it comes to this system, is that automatically it's going to exploit. It's like trying to put bridles on a wild horse. Eventually, you're never going to get control of that horse, and it's going to shake that bridle off eventually. It's just a matter of time. And the problem is that you can say, oh, whoa, wait, we'll make it so that they give 20%. Guess what? They did that already. It was called the New Deal, and they actually reversed everything. They did that. Was the period of the strongest economic growth in this country for the most people. And guess what? It got reversed when we hit 1970. And reversal was on a slight decline. It was rolling and rolling and rolling. And by the time Ronnie Reagan decided to put his diseased toe into the White House, guess what? Between him and down way fast, and there was no stopping him. And so that's exactly what happened. So what he's proposing is going back to between what we had in 1950 to 1970. But dude, I'm here to tell you, we ain't going back, because this system will not allow it. Because the system of capitalism is predicated on the consistent and constant exploitation of the people who are at the bottom. So you can say, oh, we just want to, you just don't have $100 million, you just got 80. That means that even with that 80%, that means they still exploit it to get that 80%. The problem isn't the amount, the problem is the system itself. And this is the problem that some people have when it comes to understanding things. They think, oh, well, and I'm not going to give you third-degree burns. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you first-degree burns. I'm just going to give you third-degree burns. But we don't want to be burned in the first place. We've already been stabbed in the back. Why are you only going to, we've already been stabbed in the back with a 9-inch knife. Why are you going to only pull it out 3 inches and say, well, there's only 6 inches in your back now? Keep your head down in the gutter, some of y'all. I know y'all. But here's the thing. Why in the world are we going to accept that the knife is still in our back? No, it's not just the degree of how bad we're being exploited, it's that we're being exploited in the first place. And so he goes, I'm not for capitalism or socialism. No, you're not for capitalism. You just want a kinder, gentler capitalism. But kinder, gentler capitalism did happen, and then it got reversed. And by the way, while we're talking about this, it will not be missed upon me, but these are two white guys. And so what they're talking from is a lived experience from what they and their parents have experienced within this country, but that was not the reality for a lot of us that have a little bit more melanin in our skin that existed in this country at that time. So what happened to the rest of us? Were we doing so well? Not even between the 1950s to the 1970s. We may have been doing a little bit better, but we did not have no equality. Might I remind you exactly what was going on between 1950 and 1970? If you want to do a history lesson, you can go ahead and look and you can see exactly what happened. And so was America great for everybody between that time? No, 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 no. We literally had to march in the streets while having water cannons sprayed on us. What happened in 1985 just because we tried to actually change the system? What happened in the 1960s and 1970s with a group of people who just so happened to have a little bit more melanin in their skin? They wore all black and they started feeding their communities. What happened to them? Well, wasn't it the police and the FBI that actually murdered them in cold blood or put them in prison or exiled them to other countries or had them forced to exile to other countries just so that they could stay alive? Because we tried to dare change to a system that was beyond what we were living in? Do we remember the crack epidemic? And so, yeah, I get it, right? Things were a little bit better for some, but there's still wealth inequality. And also, on top of it, the social safety nets that were already in place were gutted out. And a lot of those social safety nets were now gone. And it was a bipartisan effort between Democrats and Republicans, which shows how both parties are trash. I just wanted to put that out there.
Corporation. Like now I think we're like America Inc., where it's like we don't I don't think the corporations see us as workers and numbers on a page, not as humans. The media sees us as consumers. How do we keep your attention so that Dove soap and Aveeno will pay us more attention? You're a consumer. And politicians see us as voters. Like the three most powerful entities don't see us as human beings. They kind of pander to us and say, we really care about, getting your wages up and everything. It's like every decision you make is for the GDP to keep growing and capitalism to keep. That's the most frustrating thing to me is like anytime I hear a politician or a media person be like our country, I go, what you mean is you mean capitalism. Replace country with capitalism and then everything they say will make sense.
Yeah. One of the things he's referring to is really just a slow dissension back into creating slow dissension into restoring humans back to the status of chattel. The only difference is it will not be just melanin amount, but it will be all workers. Ultimately. Because right now, And so what is that extra step? Oh, it's going to get to a point where they're not even going to care anymore. They're just going to be like, get your ass back to work, or we're going to put you in the box. Because we refuse to say that this capitalist system does not work. And we need to fight and create a completely brand new system. And there's no that's actually going to get us in a place where we are actually dignified, have equality, equity, and an equality. That's the thing, man.
Say will make sense.
Yeah, the unfortunate reality is even when we talk about the declining birth rate, is we talk about the impact that's going to have on the economy. It isn't people aren't wanting to have kids. There's a reason why in America there's so many things. It's in 20 to 30 years the economy isn't going to be able to do as good because there is as many people. It's like, who gives a shit? It's like the economy has done nothing for us in the past 40, 50 years. Why do we talk about it as if it's something actually doing anything for us? I think that's the same thing of, talking about corporations can't afford to do a higher minimum wage, or they're gonna have to increase prices. And it's like, well, the Starbucks CEO is making like 900% more than their staff. He doesn't need to make 900% more, whatever the number is. There's money around. The stock price can maybe be $5 less. There's some of these things. It's like it's just so absurd how we are justifying their actions.
So the whole thing about Gen Z not having kids is really a concern by the parasite class, because remember what I said, that wage slavery is just chattel slavery with a few extra steps? Well, that means that they're concerned with what one person who was an advisor to the president said, basically meaning that since you guys aren't having enough kids, we don't have enough workers to exploit. And so they have an answer for that. It's called AI. It's called automation, so that they won't need as many humans to be able to do these jobs. So therefore, if you guys actually stop having kids, well, we got an answer for that. We don't need y'all anymore. We just have robots to do what we need. Uh-oh. And that's the point, right? Let me see. Let's go here, and then we'll finish up. I'm not going to be able to do this whole thing, but I just want to get to this part about Gen X, because this is the generation that is not regarded as much as they should be. But let's go
back to not understanding the data. And one of the things is, and I find it a lot. I speak a lot about baby boomers, and sometimes I feel like it's a bit hopeless to do. I just feel like we just are in such different periods of time. I don't have the ability to talk for 3 hours and really try to have an actual conversation. And so it's like, even with my best efforts, I feel like it's a failed attempt at times. I truly think that the generation that we need to try to communicate the most with is actually Generation X. When you look at Generation X, they're raised by baby boomers that were having to work. They spent their entire lives working, so they're latchkey kids. You emerge into adulthood during the dot-com bubble, where it is factually proven that if you were laid off in the tech field, you were never able to overcompensate for that loss. So you could be 25 years old and you were never able to make as much as the person that just so happened to enter the finance industry or something like that. And so immediately you are already now at a lower tier in terms of just kind of the growth of Generation X. You then have to go through 9/11 and the wars that followed that. You then go into the recession. You lose the most amount of wealth out of any single generation. You then come out of that. in your peak earning years, you experienced a pandemic, and now you're having to take care of your aging parents as well as your kids in the most expensive time ever. To talk about the number and the data with all of these things, they are somebody that around 2000, if they were about 30 years old, or kind of in the middle range of the Generation X age range, they were going to be making an average salary of about $35,296, or about $68,000 today. So, that would be a good salary today. They weren't doing too bad 2000 if they weren't in the tech industry. If you're around the average age range and you had a normal career of about 2.5% annual wage boost, which you'd kind of have to be lucky to even be able to get that for a lot of the industries that they were in. But if you were able to get about a 2.5% annual wage increase, you would now be making $65,300 today. So you're making less than you would be making in 2000. What they perceive it as is I'm making double. You're actually making less because inflation has destroyed the wage increases that you have. I think when you tell a generation that has been hosed in almost every single regard, and they're having to work, and they're having to face the fact of, I'm having to take care of everybody, nobody has ever respected me, and now I might get laid off for all of the many reasons, and I'm making less my entire career. If you can get those people to say, we need to be able to kind of know how to navigate systems and stuff like that, that's where the change is made. And for many, millennials and Gen Z, our parents are Gen X. So there's an easier way to be able to communicate with them if you can just break that prickliness. And that's been hard, but I think that, again, to make some sort of improvement for the trajectory that we're facing, we have to be able to get on board with some of these older generations to try to make a difference.
Dude.
The blame game really doesn't work when it comes to saying, oh, it's the boomers' fault, it's Gen X's inaction that's the fault, or it's the millennials' fault, or it's Gen Z's fault. We got to look at it instead of generationally, we got to look at it as who are the ones at the top? Because look, millennial that is a parasite, his name is Mark Zuckerberg, right? Who's Gen X that is a parasite? Well, you have Elon Musk, or you would have somebody like a Harlan Crow. And so the problem is that it's not necessarily a particular class that we have to blame. You know what I mean? Because we need to be done with them. How many boomers right now are suffering? A lot of boomers are suffering right now. A lot of them get food stamps now because they don't make enough. And what happens on November 1st? Well, the food stamps are going to be running out. And because the food stamps are running out, then guess what? We're going to have a lot of hungry boomers. Same thing with Gen X. Gen X are the ones who are less regarded now. They're a bit more prickly because and trust and believe Gen X. So I am an elder millennial, and elder millennials and young Gen X's were siblings. They're not our parents. And so we kind of see eye to eye on a lot of things generationally. So I think it's important for a lot of us to start looking at it not generation versus generation. It should be top versus bottom, up versus down, the wealthy parasite class versus the rest of us, to build solidarity with one another. I think that's how we do it. And the benefit of uniting with boomers and Gen X, for a lot of us millennials, and having class solidarity is that a lot of them have lived long enough to know how things work. They may not. And so it's important for us to have our solidarity with people who have the wisdom and who including have the skepticism that built over the years as well. Let's be a little bit too what's the word I want to use? We may be a little bit too optimistic, or we may see things through rose-colored glasses still a little bit, like myself, right? So this is why you need people who are a little bit more skeptical, or people who are more realistic, maybe slightly on the verge of pessimistic, in order to keep us grounded. Generations too. You know, and so I'm going to share this video because they go even deeper. And yeah, this is a really interesting conversation. You know, of course, you know, we're not going to agree with everything, but a lot of great points were made here. And I think it's important to get your opinions from different people, different sources. Don't always stay in a bubble. Don't always stay in an echo chamber. So it's important to listen to the perspectives of different people who may have different lived experiences than yourself. So let's continue to unite with, you know, all the workers among us, and let's start to be curious and learn and develop ourselves so that we're not alienating ourselves from other people. This also means growth and humility along with it. But once we do that, look, when we come together, the sky's the limit for the rest of us. And we can finally be rid of these parasites. All right, go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you very much to everybody for that one. Look, guys, that conversation was pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I really thoroughly enjoyed that. I was actually listening to that conversation on my post-morning walk. I was, you know, because I'm trying to be healthier, I actually walk after my breakfast and after my dinner. So it actually was very helpful to listen to that while I was doing my walk. All right, so let me check. Did I take down the kick string? JB, James, come on. Come on, James. Okay. All right. I wasn't thinking. All right, we're good. All right, guys, let's go into the rest of this chat, and then we are out. We are UT. Like Genie from Aladdin, we are out. Roger says, JB, I've been trying to get you to pay attention to Cassidy, get him on your show for the past 10, 11 months to get his Zoomer perspective. Glad you are now recognizing him. I've done video reactions to like 2 or 3 of his videos already, Roger. I mean, I would like to get him on. I don't have his contact information. If you know if somebody has his question, I think it would be great to have him on. But yeah, I've reacted to a couple of his videos already. Let me see. Okay. Roger says, I'm Gen X, the forgotten generation. Why are you yelling, Roger? He says, we are left out of surveys, studies, news articles. Even Chink, who was born the same year, 8 months before me, forgot he's Gen X, calling himself a boomer. Wow. He forgot his own generation. Dang. Violence says, Gen X people are actually built the internet from the blueprints. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Let me see. Michael says baby boomers were quiet to keep things to themselves. Edward says millennials were the Gen Zs before Gen Zs came in. I think when you classify into different categories, that is where the hatred begins. We all need to work together. Let me see. Let me see. Roger says Gen X, we are Jan Brady. Gotcha. Let me see. Violence of Gen experience that area. That's not what's causing division. But the boomers really did screw everyone else. Roger says, I know. Wait a minute. Was that at your house or was that at grandma's house? Because for me, it was at my grandma's house. My grandmother had a floor model TV. We ain't have that. No, it was a floor. Brand what was. It was a floor model TV in the den. So this is back in New Jersey. She had floor model TV, and then she had an entire library of Encyclopedia Britannica. You remember when they used to come by the house and they get you the encyclopedias, and you had all the encyclopedias? My grandmother had that. Also, on top of that, talk about back in the day. Remember Kirby vacuums? Remember the Kirby salesman used to come by and sell you the vacuum cleaner? My grandmother spent $800 for her Kirby vacuum cleaner. $800. And I'm talking about $800 in like 1970s, 1980s money. She might have had it longer than that. It was a Kirby vacuum cleaner. And you knew Kirby vacuum cleaners were heavy iron they sat on that carpet, and then I mean that vacuum cleaner, look, I'm telling you right now, that vacuum cleaner, it can probably remove my beard from my face. Vacuum cleaner was that powerful. And on top of it, it had attachments for like, that Kirby was something else. That thing like a tank. Bring out the Kirby. It's dirty in here. It's time to bring out the Kirby. Oh my goodness. I wish I had one of them Kirby's now. No plastic on that thing. All metal. All metal. Iron. I wonder how many of y'all remember that. Roger says, before the internet, there was no reason to have a PC or Apple. Yeah. I mean, in my family, we didn't have a PC until, we didn't have a home computer. Let me see. I was 16 or 17. Yeah, so it was 2001, 2001 where we finally got a computer. It was not bought, purchased cash. And then when we had to go online, we had to get the American Online disk and put that in there, and then you had to connect it to the modem, and you couldn't use the phone if somebody was on the internet. And them pictures used to come in real slow. Let me see. All right, so Kate Mack says, thanks for another great show. Love you, JB. I need to finish making that luxury item called dinner for a kiss. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Sila, I hear you. It says, I am for socialism and communism, so I completely disagree with the guy because he doesn't understand what capitalism is. Some people do not fully understand. And some people think capitalism is just buying and selling goods. And I'm like, no, that's commerce. Capitalism is about who owns what. Right? It's about, the means of production being owned by either one person or a very small few while they take all the profits and keep them to themselves. That's what it is about. But anyways, Kat says nobody is free until we're all free. Let me see. All right. Oh, you have World Book Encyclopedia? Oh, Lord. Rondo says Amazon will cut about 14,000 corporate jobs as the online retail giant ramps up spending on artificial intelligence while cutting costs elsewhere. I heard they were going to be doing like 600. It's going to be horrible. A lot of people are going to suffer, but that is how capitalism operates. But stop me to go. Guys, thank you so very much for tuning in to the stream. I appreciate it very much. And also, just to let you guys know, some big things are happening. I'm going to have a special announcement in a few days, and I'm not going to tell you how many days because I don't want y'all to be like, oh, well, JB's going to be giving an announcement today. No. There's some exciting things that are happening with me that I cannot wait to reveal. And so when I reveal it, you guys will be like, oh, cool. And so that, as well as I just want to thank everybody who's been helping me out as well, because there's a lot going on. Food stamps are going to be cut. I'm a food stamp recipient, so it's tough out here. So thank you to everybody that's helped me, to be able to afford the necessary groceries so that I won't starve at the end of the month. So thank you very much for that. And helping this channel reach new heights. I'm now at 5,350 subscribers. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys haven't already, go ahead and like the stream on your way out. It really means the world to me. And I thank you guys from the top and bottom of my heart. We're going to head on out. And look, like I always say, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Smoke them if you got them. Drink them if you got them. If you ain't got them, then watch something funny because joy is revolutionary, or read fundamental. Thank you so very much for watching yourself as well as your community, and Jorge, have a great. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here. Jorge Kisses.